All right, we're back, and we're doing a big bore, a 434 big bore, on our knockoff carburetor DR-Z400SM. So it's about to be a 434. As you can see here, we have a Carrillo piston here going in our Cylinder Works 434 cylinder here. And what am I doing? Dewey, what are you doing? Well, we're checking ring end gap. And what I have right now is I have our piston over here. And you've seen this before because I've done it before. It's kind of redundant, but I'm going to explain what I've done. I've done the standard procedure of using the piston for demonstration purposes only, putting the ring down in there. There's a wider ring on the compression ring. There's two of them in this piston setup, and the wider one is on the bottom here, number two from the left, and then our narrow one is on the top. And what I'm doing, let me see if I can get it to where this shows up. It probably won't because I don't have my light on. Oh, there it is, up here at the top of the screen here. There's our ring end gap. You can see the gap in the ring there in the cylinder. And it's very important that that gap is set correctly. So, yeah, I'm not going to show you how I do it because there's professional ways and there's getting it done ways. I do it the getting it done ways, and I'm not going to show you that. But at the end of the day, for this bore, there's some mathy math that we got to do to determine the ring end gap to start for in the upper and the lower ring. So until that gap is correct, we got to remove material between those rings until it's set up correctly. You don't just throw the rings on the piston and, well, we're going to put the piston together, or put the rings on the piston and put the jug on and blah, blah, blah. You don't do that. The first thing that we did was we got this cylinder in and I gave it a bath. I washed it in the sink, dried it off really well, and then immediately put a coating of oil on the inside here. And then we started putting our ring into place. It's very important. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to show all this, I'm just going to show that I'm telling you right now what I'm going to do, and this is a CP piston, but they use Wiseco rings, and here's the math. Here's all the math. If you need this, you can contact me on Instagram. I'm going to take a picture of this because for whatever reason, Carrillo doesn't come with that ring end gap. What I've noticed so far versus when I did my stroker big bore and Nathaniel's stroker big bore, I had to remove a lot of material. It's not looking like I'm having to this time, but I'm going to double check our Captain Crunch math over here on what it says, for calculating that end gap. And then we're going to proceed on to the next step. The next step is we're going to have to tear down the bike. But it's not here. So if you are planning on doing a big bore, you can get that stuff, and get it in your possession, or whoever's going to work on it possession. They can stage it, so that's one less thing that you have to do. The next thing that we'll have to do, like I said, is going to be tear down the engine. So we're going to have to drain the coolant and oil, and we'll have to take the tank off, etc., etc. And then I need to get that head, because where that head and the head gasket meet this surface have to be as perfect as we can get it to perfect. So what I got to do is, it's at the end of the day, give me some grace here. So I've got to go and do my head resurface method, because there's going to be indentations on that head, on the cylinder head where it meets this surface from the stock bore gasket. It's not going to be the same where that sits and seals the water jackets away from the combustion chamber. So what we're going to do, and it also seals it away from where the oil is here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get that head off, and I'm going to, just like if I was addressing warpage, I'm going to deck it so that that cylinder head surface will be shiny and no indentations on it like this jug is. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to give you a little spiel when I go to the teardown process, and then we'll move on to the head, then we will move on to our assembly, then we will do our first start. I'm pretty excited. Stick with us. All right, we're back on the table here. And we measured, this is the second ring here, and it measured at 19 thousandths. And after doing the math over here that we talked about, the second ring calls for, I think, after doing the math, it's just like 18.5 thousandths minimum, and I measured 19 thousandths. Great. I don't have to do anything with the second ring. But the first ring, and we're talking about the compression ring, it's just under 15 thousandths is where it's supposed to measure. However, I measured somewhere between 11 and 12 thousandths. 12 thousandths wouldn't go in. 11 thousandths was a little bit loose. So we got some material to remove on this end gap. So I'm going to get to work on that, and we're going to get it straightened up. But I expected to have to do this. And to be honest, I'm going to take another look at both of these to make sure I have an accurate reading. You know what they say? Measure twice, cut once. And that's what I intend to do. Removing material that you can't put back is a real pain when you have to order in more parts. But I secretly keep some on hand. Who am I being? Get, the thing. All right, we're back, and I'm kind of crowded over here to the side here. There's a project over here that I can't show you for obvious reasons, to me only. But what we've got here is our knockoff carburetor, knockoff FCR39 carburetor, DR-Z400SM. I've done literally everything to this bike that's been done to it, and we're doing something special. We are doing a 434 big bore on this, and for what it's worth, that's the same modification that I did on my stroker big bores as far as the top end goes. So we've already staged our piston and rings to do all of our checks and do our ring end gaps and stuff. And I'm starting the tear down on this top end so that we can get that factory top end off, get the head, do our head process to it, and then start reinstalling our new components. It's going to be as fast as I possibly can, but also not compromising any of our quality. So what I'm going to do first here, I got it up on here on the lift, somewhat precariously, but not too precariously. And I've already taken our skid plate off, and what I'm going to work on is draining our coolant and our oil first. So I'm going to do that, get our coolant done, and then I'm going to remove our seat, our tank, and our header pipe. Then what I'm going to do is do my typical removal installation of the big carburetor or even a small carburetor. I'm going to drop the subframe down a little bit, remove the rectifier, and then I'm going to start removing our bolts that are supporting the head and cylinder, and our coolant hoses, amongst other things. So I'm going to check in with you. It's raining outside and it's loud. I'm going to check in with you on different parts of that process, and we're going to keep on going along. This isn't a how-to, this is just me taking you through me doing this to this bike, because we've recorded about everything else on there. Okay, it's a couple days later, and we're at that point. We're at that point where it's time to start tearing this engine down. We've removed our knockoff carburetor, our exhaust, and I got the regulator rectifier out. Got all our tank off. Obviously we have our fuels drained. And I left this drain pan below because some of these radiators, they like to drip. I removed the radiator hoses that go to the head and to the water pump just to get them out of the way. I don't remember what I did last time when I got into the top end of my bike when I had to do my emergency inspection. Well, actually change my base gasket. I don't remember if I removed the rider's right side, your brake hand side, your throttle side, radiator off or not. Our thermostat, it kind of hangs out a little bit on that side of the bike, or of the engine, the shroud and all that. And I want to be able to place the head there and have it out of the way. So I think I might go ahead and remove that. But we have both our, our header and our exhaust. We've got our subframe loosened at the bottoms here on each side, and we've removed our top bolt here, just so that allows that subframe to shift back and give yourself room to remove that carburetor. I use that every time. And you can see, I think you can see that I've got these towels in the exhaust and the intake just to make sure we don't have anything get down in there. I know we're going to be taking our top end off anyway, but it doesn't hurt being careful. So my next steps are going to be removing our, well, I can do that right now. I can remove our spark plug connection here for our coil. And I'm going to just, I've used some of these zip ties for our throttle cables and whatnot to get them out of the way and hold them out of the way. But we have this top mount here on either side of the head that holds it in place and gives it extra support. We'll have to start removing those. But what I'm going to do next, before I do anything else, start tearing the engine down, is I'm going to make sure and get access here and get this thing to pure TDC. It might move a little bit back and forth, but I want to do that. And I'm going to turn this engine over by hand, so I'm going to remove the spark plug temporarily to be able to not be having to fight the compression. So I'm going to do that and get this at TDC. Then I'm going to remove these engine bolts, or these engine mounts at the top here, and then we're going to start getting really serious. So that's where we're at right now. We'll move forward. I might film the actual removal of it just so you can watch me, someone that's done this before, that process. And depending on how much of a pain it is, you might see me struggle a little bit, and I might fast forward it. So there we are. All right, I don't know how much of this I'm going to show, but I'm about to take the head off. And for that, I'm going to need I'm just going to go ahead and use my torque wrench here and a 12 millimeter. That's what all of our head bolts are here. I'm looking at them. So I think I'm going to need an extension. So I'm going to grab that. And the 12 millimeter is hiding over here. So we're going to pull that off of there. I've gotten the two side bolts out of the head. There's two on the side over here. They're 10 millimeter. There's our 12. And by the way, I've got our cams in a gallon baggie over here, along with their mounting brackets. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to need the extension. The adapter, the 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter is plenty of an extension. So I'm breaking these loose in as much of a crisscross pattern as I can. And meanwhile, I've got a zip tie hung around the cam chain to make sure it doesn't fall down into body of the engine. All right, that's fully broke loose. And since we're going with a higher compression and big bore on this, what we're going to do when we reattach this head, it's going to be, I think the OEM protocol is like 33 foot-pounds, and we're going to do 43, like if it was a stroker big bore. Okay, so we're going to continue rolling here. No reason to have the big 1/2 inch on here. I can handle it now with 3/8 drive. And I'm just working my way around, loosening it the rest of the way up. Okay. And I'm just by hand, I'm running these out, these 12mm studs or bolts, head bolts out. And one thing that we're going to have to make sure and do is lubricate these on reinstallation. This kit comes with studs, and I'm not going to use the studs because there's no way I could service this top end in place if I use those studs. If I did, it'd be something of a miracle. And I don't want to uninstall this engine just for a top end. We will eventually stroker this engine. Maybe. This one might, how it is right now, might be more than plenty power for him to get in trouble. With the increase of compression, let's see, come on. And I think it's all about the angle which I'm at here on, and my dexterity. Okay, just one more to go. So this is I think this might be, yeah, this is a 22 model, I think, if it's not a 21. But he bought it in late 21. And I've pretty much done all of the stuff to it. The one thing that I didn't stage was my magnet, which I might need to get these more recessed. No, they're good. I just gotta make sure and get, there's our head bolt. There's a washer down in there I've gotta get out. But they'll come out with the head. And I'm gonna put these in my plastic baggie with the cams that I just walked right by. You can tell I'm excited. Okay. One more head bolt to go. All right. Oh, and on this one, the washer came with it. Okay, so I'm just double checking here. I've got everything disconnected. Just giving a couple of Dewey pounds from the side here to break the dowel pins loose. Pretty loose. A couple pounds from this side. I think we're about off of the dowel pins. There it is. All right, so here's a critical point. And again, I got my zip tie around this pin over here where the tank holds on, bolts on. And I'm just gonna let that zip tie attachment just go on down. And this is where, remember where I was worried about the thermostat over here being in the way. There we go. And just like that, we're out. And I'm hanging it back on here. Our piston's at top dead center. And I don't know how this is showing up. I'm gonna give it a second here. There's our head. So let me grab my tripod real quick as I securely handle this. And there is our piston. The next thing will come off is the jug. All right, I'll show that part too. Okay, now we're going to take the jug off and expose our piston. At this point, after removing the head, we can take our front side cam chain tensioner or cam chain guide, and I'm putting that in our bag with our head bolts and cams. And these are some studs, it appears, that are coming out of the block, or the case half, if you will, that hold the jug or cylinder to the body. So these break loose rather easily. And you probably can't see it from this side, but I did go ahead and remove the factory or the radiator. All right, now I got my 2 nuts here, and I'm just going to put those in the bag as well. And I'm done putting things in the bag, so I'm going to go ahead and seal that bag so I don't lose anything. That's a little bit of a stretch for the bag, but I don't want to lose any nuts or bolts or anything. And I'm looking here at the cylinder here, and the front side closest to the camera dowel pin came out and went with the head, and the other one is in the jug here. We'll have to carefully remove that later on. So I'm carefully bumping the cylinder, making sure it's broken loose here, and that's coming right off. All right. And same story. And just like that, we have our cylinder. Sorry about the camera work here. We have our cylinder removed. And from my angle, I don't know how it's showing up on the camera here. There's very clear cross hatching still in place, and it's in good shape. But I'm going to very carefully, let's see if we can show you this. Carefully remove this dowel pin. Oh, it came right out, no problem. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that with the head, and when we reinstall it into the new jug, we're going to be in good shape. So the next step is going to be removing the piston, and I'm not going to show that step for step. I'm just going to do it. All right, we're in the kitchen again, and if you're new to the channel, this is my station where I resurface the head. You can look at my other DR-Z videos and rebuild videos. Sorry about the light in here, by the way. And I'm just resurfacing this. I had to go ahead and remove the valves out of it because the intake valves, the 2 bigger holes there, they were just going to make contact with the surface. So that would be counterproductive for the valves, and it also would be counterproductive for getting this thing flat and getting all the grooves from the stock bore head gasket sealing surface. So what I've done is I've gone 220, 400, and now I'm at 600 here. In a nutshell, what I've been doing, and I'm just going to kind of halfway do this here, is I've been doing figure eights with both hands on this surface. Now, and then I've been going back and doing left-handed and right-handed circles or figure eights on it. And I've got this setting on my countertop. I don't want to do it out in the garage. It's not very well heated, and no one's here to complain at me about having this in the kitchen, so there you go. I've got a big steel flat plate underneath this sheet of sandpaper, and I just got some quick Jiffy clamps. That's my little boiler cord over there to the side when I make tea. But I have these Jiffy clamps just clamping to these pieces of wood, which are making contact with the sandpaper. And there you go. It's pretty self-explanatory. Those boards hold it in place, and I'm making those strokes, if you will, those figure eights in an even pressure, and I'm not really pushing down. It's just a light pressure down. Main thing is getting the figure eights in. So I've got that resurfaced. Let me see if I can show it to you one more time. There you go. That's just a residue of the aluminum I removed. That's there on the discolored area. But I've got all the grooves out of it. Now I'm going to give this thing a bath and quickly re-oil those the valve seats there so they don't get some surface rust going. And I'm going to Jiffy dry those. I'm going to inspect these valve guide seals. I think I have some on hand, and I'm going to replace those if that's the case. But I'm going to do that off camera. Update, we've got the cylinder and piston, the piston and the cylinder and base gasket on. They're in good shape, and we'll show you that in the next clip when we install this head. All right, we're back, and here's an update. We've got, it's been cold. I've got the head back on. I've placed the cylinder on the piston. Piston's connected on there, and I've gotten this, our cams in, everything's torqued down. Again, we went to 42 foot-pounds on our torque down on our head bolts. That's kind of a recommendation for the stroker and big bore. Factory says, I think 32 or 33 foot-pounds. But, you know, we decked the head, we did all that stuff, you know, had to remove the valves, all that business, put them back in. So we're in that point where it's starting to get a little bit more put together and it looks like an engine again. So here's where I'm at right now. I'm wanting to cycle this engine over a few times once I get the oil and the coolant in. I've got to replace the radiator and get it all plumbed in, get our radiator hoses, bleed our coolant out, and then we have our engine mounts up here that I've got to install yet. Like I said, oil and coolant. And what I like to do is I like to prime these engines. I like to prime them with the oil. I like to get the air bubbles out of the coolant. And right now we don't have a spark plug in here. Again, I've pretty thoroughly covered the engine. I've got it blocked off here in the intake and exhaust. So we're in that point where it's getting close to that time, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. You know, we've still got to put the exhaust on. I've got the carburetor here. We're going to make some augmentations on that. And you know, it's been over a year since I've been in this carburetor since we initially tuned it. We're going to jet down to probably like a 42. I'm going to try that on the pilot jet down from a 45. I think we're at a 165 on our main jet. We're probably going to stick with that for now. We may go up or down on that. Remember, we do have the E-cams in this. We may, you know, if we have a throttle pickup issue, you know, if it's wanting that fuel sooner due to the larger bore potentially, we may have to raise our needle position by dropping the clip in the needle. We might not. We're going to find out. It depends on what it wants. So, I mean, the first thing that I want to do is I want to get this thing started, make sure it's not leaking anywhere, and get a load put on that engine. So as soon as I start it, if it's not leaking, I'm going to go to my spot over here, get those rings, that initial seating of those rings done. After I get it primed and all that business, make sure we're not leaking. So we're going to go through a stage of progression. I'm assembling it tonight. This is kind of dragging on. Oh wow, was I a little bit cockeyed? Sorry about that. But you know, it's just going to be a slow progress here. I like to be methodical on this part. We really flew through the first parts of this. I got the tear down done rather quickly. I'm having some regrets that I didn't show the placement, the initial placement of the head. That's one of those things where what's kind of good about a DR-Z, you know, you might think that, you know, some of the motocross bikes where you can actually pull the head off through the frame, because like I think what's the RM, I don't know if they still do that these days, like the 450s and what, but there's plenty of room here for you to move around. You just got to be really careful not to let slack happen in your cam chain. You know, a lot of people call it the timing chain. What does it do? It turns the cams. It's a cam chain. So, and when you get it initially placed, you get your cam chain guide in place and make sure that you're not jamming it down onto the cam chain itself. So you got to have your slack pulled tight, and and if you're paranoid about that, you have your fluids drained out of it. Pull your clutch side case cover off. That's fine. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings by doing that. So, and you can make sure that you don't have any of the links of the chain exposed. That's just being thorough. There's nothing wrong with that. Costs you a little bit of time, but if you're going to be methodical and you don't have any problems in the future, that's how you do it. Again, we have cam chain tensioner in place. I've made sure and put extra oil and some assembly lube. I torqued down these cam caps here, and I've cycled it over a few times. Before I put the cover on here, I'm going to check valve lash. That's just kind of a preventative thing. I just installed these cams and shimmed the valves for these cams earlier this year in the springtime. So one could assume they're right, or you can actually measure them, and that's what I'm going to do. That's actually the next thing I'm going to do. Maybe daub a little bit of extra oil. I've got my oil can right here, so I just give it a couple pumps there. Oil can, if you don't know, you don't know. But we're moving right along. For this, we did not do any head work on this. I see in the foreseeable future on this engine, we're going to pull this engine at some point and do a stroker crank on it at some point. And we've moved right along with this bike, and I'm going nuts. This is going to be a long video. If you don't like it, you can fast forward through it. But we've done everything up to this point. I have done everything on this bike, aside from the gaskets and whatnot. We've done the free power mod. We've done chain and sprockets. We've tried a few different gearings on it. I've changed all the tires on it. We've done the initial. We had the original carburetor on this, and almost. I think we weren't even in break-in yet. We did the 3x3 and the JD components in this bike, and that was a major upgrade for it. And even when he was running the stock exhaust, and then when he wanted to put a slip on, then we made our changes. Then he did a full exhaust, then we made our changes. And when he put the full exhaust is when we moved to the knockoff FCR, which is fine. It's a good upgrade. It's probably not as best or as good as an authentic one, but I'm thinking I'm going to make a bold statement here. It's better than the slant body FCR. We've done the kickstart. We've done the spring on the rear here, the Race Tech spring. We've done his headlight on there. He's putting some hand guards on. He's got his undertail, his tail tidy. We've got the Cormoto brake lines. But there's several things that we've gone through and done, and it's really come together nicely. I like doing things in progression like that. Shout out Link's Garage for this frame plug that he 3D printed for us. What a guy. But anyway, we're moving on. I might show some video of me priming the oil system. It drives some people nuts, and I love it. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and continue with assembly, and I'm going to get to work. Okay, I think we're ready for our test start here on the big bore. Gone through and put the exhaust and everything on. I think we're in pretty good shape. I'm going to do a quick rundown over here. Everything looks tight, ready to rock and roll. I've just got the tank sitting on there in case we have to go and do anything crazy. Chokes on. me luck. We're back, and I'm doing another attempt here. We started with a 42 pilot jet, and it undeniably did not like that. I'm just manipulating this in such a way that I can use the choke, because it's a tight squeeze and I don't have this thing finally attached here. And we got our fuel on, we got our choke on. Let's see what she does. Give her a pump. Give her another pump. Oh, we got a backfire. That a lot better. All right, we're doing our break-in ride right now. It's going pretty good. 434 big bore.
Recording.
All right, we're back, and we're kind of concluding this rebuild, or this big bore upgrade on the DR-Z. And I'm doing the 30-minute ride on this for the initial break-in. And you know, we've got this Chinese, or this knockoff carburetor. And you know, I knew I'd had to get a little, you know, I had to go kind of back through a lot of the steps that I took when I initially installed this thing, to get it in the right position and all this stuff when I put it back in here, when we did this build, because it's one of those situations where it's got to get settled. And you know, right now I'm dealing a little bit with the hanging idle occasionally, and I think that has to do with getting our throttle cables in a nice settled situation, and also adjust the carburetor at a certain angle, because sometimes, well, it's just a manufacturing quality situation. But I'm going to ride this thing for 30 minutes, and I can already tell that it's, you know, I'm not even rolling into the throttle hard. We're not getting a lot of decel popping or anything. You know, I'm going to pull the tank back off when we do our service here on it, because I'm going to change the oil on it, because the oil can tell you everything, or a lot of things, that you need to know. So that's why it's important, even though it's, you know, it's not a motocross bike or this and that, but it's just something that has served me well. So I'm just going like quarter to maybe half throttle in this break-in, and as you probably could tell, I'm kind of varying. I'm rolling on and letting it roll off, and I'm gonna have to adjust this idle down just a skosh. I tried the 42 pilot jet on this, and it notably did not like it. It didn't want to start. So anyway, we're going to do a few adjustments on it, and I'm going to do a few cable adjustments and stuff when we get back in, but it's running. and it's functioning plenty good enough to get this initial break-in done. I'm going to continue riding this for about 30 minutes. I'm going to look down here. I need to focus on what I'm doing here. I'm going to watch our temperature, making sure that we're not getting too hot. But, you know, I don't really have any more details to share with you on this build. So that's going to conclude it here. I want to thank you for watching. And again, I know we haven't done our 8,000 mile review on my stroker big bore with the authentic FCR39 MX on it, but we will do that. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to sharing this with you, and we'll see you next time.